If you have good musical taste, you definitely recognize those notes. But you might not know that behind the lyrics and the dark, symbolism-filled music video, there's a real story of pain and suffering that led to the death of one of the group's members, and still threatens the band to this day. Today I'm going to reveal to you the story behind Otherside by Red Hot Chili Peppers. I'm Guilherme, and you're watching Decipher Hits. Released as the third single from the album Californication, in the song Otherside, Red Hot used various symbols and metaphors to expose a terrible battle, which had already taken the life of one of the group's members and threatened to do the same with the rest. Drug addiction. To understand the music video and the lyrics of Otherside, we need to know the troubled past of the band's members with drugs. Since the birth of Red Hot in the early 80s, the band has been known not only for its lively sound, but also for heavy drug abuse. In his 2004 autobiography, Scar Tissue, Anthony Kiedis says that he smoked weed for the first time at the age of 12, together with his father. Just 2 years later, Anthony had his first experience with heroin. As the years went by and Red Hot grew, the lead singer's addiction became an increasingly heavy burden, to the point where Kiedis was kicked out of his own band by producer Michael Byrne in '87, who only allowed the singer to return after he got clean in rehab. Another member who also fought for years against addiction was the guitarist Hilo Slovak, who unfortunately lost this battle after suffering an overdose in '88 at the age of 26. According to Anthony Kiedis, this episode marked the lowest point of the band. My best friend died. And that definitely destroyed me emotionally, but I kept using heroin anyway. Until it got to a point where drugs and alcohol could no longer shut off the noise in my head. That's when, at 27 years old, Kiedis used the last $10,000 in his account to enter a rehab clinic, which probably saved his life. Also, in '88, Hillel Slovak was replaced by another great guitarist, the young John Frusciante, who unfortunately didn't know how to handle fame very well. And he ended up succumbing to the same addiction as Slovak, to the point where he could no longer perform at shows and ended up leaving the band in '92. Just like Kiedis and Hillel Slovak, Frusciante sank into drug use, which got worse over the years, and John was already starting to show signs that he was nearing his end. The bassist Flea, with whom John Frusciante never lost contact, tried for years to convince his friend to seek treatment, but he only decided to get help at the beginning of '98 after suffering 5 overdoses. Fortunately, John Frusciante also recovered, and a few months later, managed to return to the group to work on the next Red Hot album, Californication, an album that marked the rebirth of the Californian band, which until then had been struggling. In fact, we've already told this story in this video where we break down the album's title track. And one of the first songs the band wrote when they got back together was the song Otherside, which summed up this whole dark situation that had been haunting the band for years. In an interview, Frusciante revealed that it's his favorite song on the album, since it has a huge emotional meaning for him. And he added that the lyrics are about the intense battle between the conscious and the subconscious. In the lyrics of Otherside, we see a dark narrative that closely resembles the journey of Anthony Kiedis and John Frusciante against addiction, but it also serves as a tribute to the late guitarist Hillel Slovak. And we can see the similarities right in the first verses of the song. How long will I slide, separate from my side? Anthony may have come back from rock bottom, but like every addict, he knows that just a single slip is enough for him to succumb to addiction again, which distances him from his rational side.
Aliás, Kiedis consumia tanto entorpecente
that he reached a point where using became a natural part of his routine, and he could no longer see chemical dependency as a bad thing, which he makes clear in the verse.
Don't believe it's bad.
No, I don't believe it's a bad thing. In the midst of so much anguish and difficulty, he thinks several times about doing something terrible. Just as he never finishes the sentence, he never put it into practice, probably due to the fact that there is still a small amount of sanity and hope in him that prevents him from doing the worst thing. Cutting my throat is all I ever in the unfolding of the song. He also makes several references to his late friend Hilo Slovak. It's as if Anthony, when looking at an old photograph, remembers the old days, next to his friend who was never able to return to a normal life after giving into addiction. I heard your voice through a photograph. I thought about it, relived the past. Once you find out, there's no going back. In the book Scar Tissue, Anthony talks a bit about Slovak's death, saying that he was so shaken that he couldn't even go to the funeral. Instead, he decided to go to Hawaii to get clean from drugs and drown his grief in the crystal clear seas of that place, which in this song, he mentions as a cemetery where I married the sea.
Scar tissue, by the way.
Just as that experience with nature was essential for Anthony Kiedis to move forward, making videos like this one is only possible thanks to your support and your likes. So go ahead and click the like button so this video can reach other people who, just like you, also appreciate good music. The lyrics continue to portray the dark journey, now talking about the painful detox process that Kiedis and many others before him went through. I pour my life into a paper cup. The ashtray is full while I throw up. Usually in rehab centers, the medications used for treatments are served in small paper cups. Some of these centers also allow patients to smoke, as this makes the process more bearable, especially during the withdrawal phase, where vomiting is a very common symptom. In the next verses, we see the protagonist being strongly seduced by the drug, which is now a character in the story, represented by a red star.
Do you want to know, am I still alive?
She wants to know if I'm still an easy person. A red star is in my bed. Pull the trigger, and I'll pull the string. He clearly ends up giving in to the seduction of drugs, since pulling the string is a reference to injecting, while the expression pull the trigger refers to something that could end his life. And before John Frusciante's beautiful solo, the song enters a dense and heavy interlude, which represents the drug's effect at its peak, and, of course, its terrible consequences. Keep me wired. Take me on a heavy trip. Finish me off and leave me on the other side. I scream and say she's not my friend. I finish her off and then she shows up again. Even though the drug brings you ecstasy, it ends up taking everything from you and leaving you on the other side. That is, in the afterlife. Here it becomes clear that the inspiration for the song's name is nothing more than the final result in the journey of drug abuse, death itself. And just like the lyrics, the music video for Otherside is also full of references and symbolism that connect with the central theme of the song. In it, we see a colorless, caricatured, and disproportionate city in a setting that can be considered as the protagonist's nightmare. The video starts with the main character lying at the bottom of an abyss, with large broken red wings. The character, who by the way looks a lot like Hilo Slovak, seems to be on the verge of death. The red wings represent a fundamental element for his tragic end, which you will understand later on. He starts to see his own life passing before his eyes, remembering the dark path that led him to that point. First, he remembers being in an ambulance, being rushed to the hospital. When he arrives, the doctors put an oxygen mask on him, at which point he blacks out and is sent straight into the world of the subconscious, where his biggest problems reveal themselves through frightening representations. In his subconscious, the character desperately fights against his own addiction, represented by a giant monster that spits fire. Finding himself unable to defeat the addiction, he tries to escape using a staircase, but soon realizes he's in a maze where every exit leads to the same place. This can represent the distressing situation of many addicts who try to find a way out through other activities, but often end up encountering triggers that lead them back into the maze of addiction. Meanwhile, the band members wear black, as if they are in mourning, and appear in distorted representations of their roles in the band. Chad Smith appears playing drums on a clock, since the drummer is responsible for keeping time in the music. Flea appears playing on high-voltage wires, since he represents all the energy of the band. Anthony Kiedis appears calm and singing the verses softly, very different from the lively and expressive persona we see in other Red Hot Chili Peppers videos. Finally, Frusciante appears playing a single giant string, since he represents the common thread that ties the band's sound together. Eventually, the protagonist manages to find the way out, but along the way, he is faced with his last and most difficult challenge. This painting, with a happy, feminine face and only one eye, represents illusion. And the big red lips represent the dangerous seduction of drugs. He even looks at the stairs as if he wants to keep climbing, but he is soon seduced by that trap. And from that point on, he is forced to face his own shadow, which comes out from his feet and starts to fight against him. As we already explained in the Stairway to Heaven video, the shadow represents the negative aspects of our personality, according to the psychologist Carl Jung. This shows that many times your greatest enemy can be yourself. Unfortunately, the character gives up fighting against himself and gives in to the seduction of drugs. At first, it seems to work very well. He ran away from his problems and now flies happily above everything and everyone, until a giant crow arrives and starts attacking him mercilessly. Symbolically, the crow is the representation of death, which, just like in the lyrics of the song, is the only outcome of drug use. Finally, the crow knocks the protagonist off a cliff, from which he falls helplessly until he reaches the abyss, his end. The final scene is the same as we see at the beginning, symbolizing the endless cycle of addiction, with the pursuit of the peak of momentary pleasure, followed by the abyss into which it drags you, resulting in yet another failed attempt to escape addiction. Yeah, since they're a band known for such lively and vibrant songs, you might never have imagined that Red Hot Chili Peppers brought such serious and dark themes in their songs. But yes, they do that, and in an incredible way. Just click on this video here and you'll understand what I'm talking about. Thanks for staying with us. See you in the next video.